I meant to do a video on the 4B movement like a month ago, but now that I'm seeing people talking about implementing it in the US, I think it's time. So the 4B movement started in 2019 in South Korea, and it's also known as the 4 No's. The 4 No's are sex with men, child rearing, dating men, or marrying men. Around its creation in 2019, the movement was reported to have about 4,000 followers. And now it seems like hundreds of thousands of American women are ready to join too. It caught on in South Korea over Twitter, and then a bunch of feminist journalists and writers got a hold of the idea and started spreading it. And I love the label it was given. It's called a digital feminist movement. The reason 4B seems necessary in South Korea, and I would argue the US, because it's a reaction to a patriarchal system that's pronatalist. And as a result, it views and treats women as mere tools to repopulate the country. The Korean 4B movement also sees women eschewing beauty standards, which in turn affects the economy, especially because Korea is such a hub for skincare right now. Women have also been refusing to wear bras and shaving their heads. The Korean 4B movement also has a lot to say about childbearing. At the moment, South Korea has the lowest birth rate in the world of 0.7. To maintain Korea's current population of 51 million, each woman has to have 2 kids. However, South Korea is having a lot of the same problems that America's having. It's expensive to have a kid, it's expensive to live in general, and also women are not being treated terribly well. As of 2022 in South Korea, 65% of women did not want kids, as opposed to 48% of men. In response, the Korean government is offering stipends to new parents, improved maternal and paternal leave, childcare subsidies, and even paying for IVF. But it's too little too late. Korean culture, even more so than American culture, really pushes marriage. And it does it in some sneaky ways. For example, South Korea's 35% wage gap is the highest among developed countries. And this incentivizes women to marry men, because they kind of need a man's salary if they want to live comfortably in any way. It's also super stigmatized to be single in South Korea. And part of Korea's olive branch toward the 4B movement is that a woman can give her children her last name rather than her husband's last name, making it harder to discern who is married and who's not. However, it's not just money and their own name that Korean women want. They also want to be safe. The incidence of intimate partner violence in Korea is 41.5%. One of the articles that I read for this video was by Reuters, and one of the young men who were interviewed said, "Considering the low birth rates and other problems in our society, it would be better for people to marry and have babies." Wow, thank you so much for your opinion, person who can't get pregnant or give birth. But the 4B movement does not give a shit what men think. This movement does not have the goal of changing men's minds. Instead, the 4B movement is all about moving away from men altogether. One 30-something woman who's a teacher was quoted by Reuters saying, "Talking to my male friends always makes me feel like I can never find a Korean man. Even in my generation, some guys expect a really traditional role from their spouse." In the article immediately following her quote, Reuters mentioned that there was a survey done in South Korea that shows that women are afraid to get married because of the unequal split in household labor, and men are hesitant to get married because of feminism. Now, I don't know a ton about South Korea, so as I was doing my research for this video, I was surprised to see how much the changing gender roles in South Korea lined up with the changing gender roles in the US. For instance, just like in the US, the university attendance of Korean men has gone down, while the university attendance of Korean women has gone up. In the past, much like in America, Korean women were expected to leave the workforce for, at minimum, several years so that she could either focus on being a housewife or focus on being a stay-at-home mom. But between wanting a kid and needing more money, women in both nations are re-entering the workforce sooner, which means that when it comes time for things like promotions, men have even more competition. Oh no. And of course, men have decided that because they want more rights, Korean and American women are selfish, vain, and self-obsessed. They also say that Korean women are already above men because they don't have to be drafted into the military. Sound familiar? And I'm sure that incels exist in Korea. But in addition to them, there is this movement called ilbe. And much like many American men, the members of ilbe believe that the women of Korea want additional rights, not equal rights. They consider all women to be shallow gold diggers. as if most of them have gold to dig. And unfortunately, the Korean police don't seem to be huge fans of women either. In 2016, a man murdered a woman in a public bathroom in Seoul, and his self-reported motive was that women ignored him. But even after hearing that, from his own mouth, the police would not label that a hate crime. The ilbe also go online and screen grab pictures of women at feminist protests, single them out, and share them on ilbe sites. The goal is that these women will be recognized on the sites and accosted in real life. Women with short hair are also targeted in public simply because many women in the 4B movement cut their hair short. Korean women who support 4B have been looking for ways for the women of their country to only support each other. One of the interviewees in a piece on the 4B movement by The Cut created a map of her city that highlights all the women-owned businesses so they can shop there exclusively. Many women are meeting with financial advisors so they can figure out how they can live without a man. Of course, there is a lot of gray area in the 4B movement. I made a video this week saying that not dating, marrying, or reproducing with men doesn't mean that we have to isolate them, but there are 4B members in Korea who think it means exactly that. Others, though, think more like me, that just because we're not dating men doesn't mean we can't be friends with them. There's also a discussion around lesbianism. Among other things, part of the 4B movement is desexualizing women, making it so they don't have this standard of beauty to live up to. But in the view of some 4B members, a lesbian relationship resexualizes women. Then, of course, you have the question of whether trans women would be welcome. One woman who asked to join 4B was allegedly asked to send in a video of her Adam's apple. And there's always the argument about what level of feminist you have to be to qualify as a real feminist. Quite a few articles that I came across blames South Korea's plummeting birth rate on the 4B movement. But according to the Reuters article, this is basically like people in America blaming our lowered birth rate on the child-free movement. However prominent the community seems to you, in reality, there aren't enough 4B members to make a significant dent yet. I'd wager that much like there are tons of people in the US who are opting out of having kids without considering themselves part of the child-free movement, there are plenty of women in Korea with their own reasons for not reproducing who might not even be aware that 4B is a thing. I hope that if the US wants to go toward adopting the 4B movement, that we iron out everything beforehand. Nothing annoys me more than a movement that purports to have the same goal, but there are small differences that don't jive and can cause problems. For example, we need to iron out the debate on admitting trans women. We need to figure out if friendships with men are permitted. What do women do who are currently married if they're happy in their relationship? Is there such a thing, according to the 4B movement, as one of the good ones when it comes to men? These are important aspects to nail down because the more divided we are within a movement, the weaker the movement is as a whole.